and happy Saturday once again. So, I have begun to binge watch because that's what you do when it is a Netflix show you're about to talk about. The Crown. The Crown is my first Netflix show I have watched since November. Why? Because in November, we at Auto Radio launched our audiobooks app. And to be honest, I stopped watching TV. All I've been doing is listening to audiobooks and thinking about them ever since then. So I did a little something different, went a little contra to the plan, I should say, and decided to go back and watch Netflix. So I picked The Crown, which was a great thing to pick because I'm just riveted. I can't think of anything else. Anyway, what the point I'm trying to make is that there is a quote from season 2, I think it's episode 3, I want to say, that really stuck with me. And the Queen is talking with Anthony Dean, the Prime Minister, and she is talking to him about the fact that he will resign. He's just resigned. And he's wondering if he made a mistake by colluding with the Israeli forces to invade Egypt to try and regain control of the Suez Canal. And he says to the Queen, did I make a mistake? And she says, doing nothing is often the best course of action. But then history certainly was not made of those who did nothing. So it's a perfectly natural thing for ambitious men, driven men, to want to go down in history. To which Anthony Dean says, or make history by going down. That's a whole other thing. But it's a quote that's really stuck with me, and I've been thinking about it a lot. Because to do nothing is so hard. You know, and this is the whole role of the Queen, perhaps, in the monarchy, or at least what I'm getting from what I'm watching this show, which is really teaching me a lot about the history, not just of the monarchy, but the history of England, you know, in the years of her reign and Winston Churchill's strategy and his later years post-war and so forth. But doing nothing, you can see that here is someone who really, for the sake of national security, for the sake of her country, wants to do things. She wants to take action, but she's held back by other people who guide her, who sort of control her. And as she grows and wisens as a person, she often realizes that doing nothing is actually the best thing to do. So put this into the context of our daily lives where, you know, we come from a world where we're told, do something, make something of yourself, take action against injustice or whatever. And juxtapose that with this very Eastern notion, actually, and clearly a Western notion too, when you talk about the British monarchy, of doing nothing. In the audiobooks that I have been listening to of late, I have listened to a bunch of audiobooks about great people, great companies, all who changed the course of history because they did not just something, but plenty. I refer to Phil Knight in Shoe Dog. I think I talked about that in one of my previous videos. He took action starting in the minutest of ways, which resulted in the building of a shoe empire called Nike. I talk about a book called Four, which is written by Scott Galloway, and it's a fascinating book to listen to because it talks about the 4 big companies in the tech world: Google, Amazon, Facebook, and of course Apple. And each of them, with their iconic founders, are certainly made of people who did things. There was clearly no case of inaction or no action. Yet I have also listened to a book, The Book of Joy, about the Dalai Lama and a meeting that he had with Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of South Africa. And he clearly takes the path many times of doing nothing, because that is how you really tune into yourself to achieve joy in what is often a joyless world. Easier said than done. Oprah Winfrey, in her book, The Wisdom of Sundays, which is derived out of or built out of her Super Soul Sundays series, she talks to a lot of integrative health practitioners, spiritualists, mindful meditation experts who will give the advice of letting go, which in some ways resonates with this idea of do nothing, right? I put this out on Instagram and on Facebook this morning because I've really been thinking about it a lot. It's in my psyche. And I had an interesting response from Robert Kemp, my friend in Hong Kong in the newsroom of RTHK. And he said, I'm going to read it. He says, I don't know. The Russians pretty much did nothing when Napoleon invaded, apart from burning anything of use to the French. And that worked. That worked. And Robert says that aggressive inaction is the way forward. Aggressive inaction, an oxymoron or a real truth to think about and dive into. So, of course, I don't have any answers. I'm not the expert. I don't know who does. If you know, certainly point them my way because I would love to talk with them. But I'd like to actually ask you the question. What would you do? Would you do nothing? Would you do something? Would you do something about nothing? And that could lead to a whole other different path as well. Not sure what the answer is. Currently, I am listening to, well, actually, I just put into my listening library for my Auto Studio audiobooks app, book about Elon Musk. I know a little bit about it. This is his memoir, and clearly he too is someone who did things, is doing things, plenty of them. So the nothing I don't think fits there, but I'd like to put this question out to you because I'm trying to find more books that I can listen to where people are advising that you do nothing. What are those? And what is their rationale for saying so? And is it easy? Just quickly to leave you with the Ayurvedic point of view, it very much depends upon your dosh, right? Upon your mind-body type. So, for example, if I'm a Vata type person, air space, my tendency is to react quickly. If I combine that with the fire-water element, the Pitta dosha, that happens even more so, perhaps in a very volcanic way, where it's the sudden eruption, sudden reaction. We're guilty of that. I'm guilty of that because certainly that mixes my dosha type. So oftentimes, if I just hold back and don't react, which could be seen as perhaps doing nothing, or at least doing nothing in that moment, then that is a good course of action. It's hard, it's not easy, and it certainly isn't easy for me. Just because I'm an Ayurvedic expert doesn't make it easy for me to sort of control your dosha, I think is the hardest thing. However, if you're a Kapha dosha type, where you are stable and solid and resistant to change, then oftentimes your natural course of action will be to do nothing in that moment, when perhaps doing something, taking action, would be the better way to go. So, will you change history? How will you change it? And can you actually change history by doing nothing? What's your opinion? I'd love to know. Till next week.